I'm going to give 3 different areas where teams can target in order to try and break down Atlanta FaZe and overcome the juggernaut that they are. Just before we hop in though, very quickly want to remind you guys that this is Reverse Sweep Round 11 presented by USA Insurance. The first things the opposing team is going to want to try and do is to separate this Atlanta FaZe teams. There is a clear trend that during Atlanta FaZe losses, what you actually end up with is 2 SMGs and then the 2 ARs playing completely different games. It doesn't happen often, but if you can slow down their ARs, if you can get Cellium and Arcitys to be pushed back at leaving Simp and aBeZy out in the open a bit, you can try and isolate them. And very interestingly, they get too fast, they get a little bit ahead of themselves, and the ARs simply can't keep up. So if you can try and split that team up, maybe try and get the SMGs involved a little bit in the mix and put them under some pressure, you can force them into that kind of separation. The second thing that teams should be focusing on is playing the veto game. FaZe have worked really hard to improve their map pool, and they're not a really weak team even on maps that they struggle on, but they do have some gaps in there still, and you do get the options to try and force those maps in there, and teams should try and take advantage of that. An example of a map to choose in Hardpoint would be Apocalypse, where they've got 4 wins and 5 losses over the season. They've only actually won this map once out of 4 different attempts in series that they have gone on to lose this season. So this is one to try and throw in there. And if we look at S&D as well, it's a similar trend when we talk about Express and Miami. These are both maps where Atlanta FaZe don't like to play, and when they do, they don't often come out on top. So try and get that into the series. Control, they don't have a map that they are negative on at all. However, the one that they really don't like to play is Checkmate. So it's going to be difficult to squeeze that one in, but do try. And finally, the area that teams are going to want to try and pick FaZe apart on is going to be Search and Destroy. FaZe are extremely reliant on first bloods. They're very, very good at getting them. They're very, very good at seeing the rounds out when they do go on to get them. Their playstyle is slow and methodical most of the time and just relies on getting that opening pick. And you can see that from aBeZy, who gets 22% of all the first bloods. So basically any round that Atlanta FaZe play in S&D, aBeZy has a 1 in 5 chance of getting a first blood. That's phenomenal. However, if you compare that to their performances in series where they go on to lose, aBeZy's first blood rate drops down to around 13.6%, and their team first blood percent also falls to 37, considerable drop-offs. But we get it, right? aBeZy's big on first bloods, and first bloods are important in S&D. Enigma, you're not really telling us anything here that is relatively new, relatively different. Well, let me add on an extra layer there. In a lot of the bomb situations in this game, defensively, Atlanta FaZe are relatively average. Again, they're still going to be one of the better sides in the league, but they're much more in line with everyone else when it comes to defensive retakes. One of the strategies that I'd like to see teams try and implement in S&D is a bit of a shock and awe kind of tactic. Fly the bomb site and just try and get that bomb down. Don't give Atlanta FaZe that time to set up and get the opening pick. Force them into a situation where they've got to retake an area where, again, they are much more in line with the league. And one of the main reasons that I bring up S&D is because this side have been to 8 Game 5s so far this year. You can't expect to see out all the respawns against this side, and I do think that any team that manages to take them on the searches is going to have a great chance at beating them.